Stand by. Well, folks, this is what it looks like. It's about 300 yards from my house. There's a river, which normally you can just walk across. There's some deeper spots.
So this is the stream that's by my house. It's about 300 yards down the hill.
Don't mean to be repetitive.
This is, believe it or not, actually it's more than a stream. It's
I don't know if you can hear the audio, the double audio here, but
and this is what happens.
This is 5 inches of rain, folks. At least 5, maybe even 6. It is amazing, astounding.
Storm Fred. And the water is right up to the base of the bridge.
So if they ever tell you, if you ever can't understand how these streams sometimes
just go up a little bit
get
more
to
here.
become raging torrents, this is how it happens.
This is really crazy, but the one
they just, this is so out of control. The only upside to all of this is the fact that it's bringing a lot of trout downstream from up from the mountains, and it's probably not going to peak until sometime tonight or first thing tomorrow morning. In which case, a lot of what you see not covered will be covered, and the bridge that you saw before will, well, it'll be gone, I guess, or the water will go over it. That happened one other time when I was here back over the winter time. When we had 5 inches of rain. I think it was that late in the winter or early in the spring. So fun times here in North Georgia with the remnants of Fred going by, and the Joe and Joe Weather Show brought to you tonight by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, on Long Island. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number there for the best prices in town. OmniTrueValue.com, the website, and also brought to you by Wholesale Holiday Lighting by Giannini, your complete holiday lighting specialist, meeting all your decorating needs, whether you want your home decorated or you want to do this as part of your net hit. And now we're back. So with everything that's been going on down here, we've lost the internet a few times, we've lost power. David wants to know if I have to sandbag your property. No, that river is 300 yards, less than 300 yards from my house, but my house sits about 150 feet above the level of where the river is. So if the water were ever to reach my house, we're talking about a serious disaster. That's never going to happen. I can't imagine what world we would be living in that would allow the water to get up that high. But no, I don't have to sandbag. So there it was, Joe. Finally stopped raining here at 6:30.
I would assume also that the temperature again today did not hit 90 degrees where you were.
Until 4 o'clock this afternoon, it hadn't gone above 70. It was in the 60s all day. I mean, it just absolutely poured and poured and poured. And JJ, who normally does his business early in the morning, when we go to the dog park, number 2, I don't know how he hasn't gone all day. I've walked him half a dozen times. The only thing he thinks about when he goes outside is smelling for rabbits and smelling for deer. And I think they must have been around today, just kind of laying low while the rain was falling, because he just could not get his mind off the deer and the rain.
Well, it's been incredible to me that you have had a summer like what you have had, and actually today probably was the wettest day that you've had all summer. I mean, you in terms of what we'd expect in the southeastern United States and especially Georgia, you really haven't had all that much. You probably have had a below normal precipitation summer so far. And obviously,
we've run through some dry stretches, but I've had a lot of. Last week we had thunderstorms almost every late afternoon and evening. So I'm thinking probably the rainfall here has been fairly normal. But we've had a few, if it doesn't rain for a few days, things dry up pretty quickly around here too. So
Well, 5 or 6 inches in one day is a heck of a lot. That's, I mean, up here, that's like almost a month and a half's worth of rainfall in just a matter of a few hours.
Yeah, no,
So,
it was nonstop. I don't know what the final total was at the airport, which is down about 15 miles from where I am, and in a slightly lower elevation. I'm in the back. I'm against the mountain, so that when it rains here more often and with more ferocity under certain circumstances than it does when you go into town. Although there are exceptions to that, but it was a nasty day. It poured all day. Not much in the way of wind, but Fred certainly dumped all that tropical moisture over us. And we've got Grace to talk about tonight, and I think we might have to have a little conversation about Henri, based on what I've been seeing on the models since overnight and during the day today, Joe. I'm a little more interested in it. I don't know if you took a look at the runs of the NAM today, but I have them saved, so we're gonna go through it.
I have not had a chance, although the latest 18Z run of the GFS brings Henri precariously close to Cape Cod and the islands on the way northward. So, talk about how that big high pressure ridge was going to do at least Bermuda a favor. It probably will, but will it do us here in the eastern United States a favor? Because that storm looks like it's going to try to go up along the periphery, the western periphery of the ridge. And if that ridge, I think, is a little bit stronger, Joe, and flexes its muscle a little bit more, that ridge is going to extend further back to the west and allow Henri to take more of a path to the northwest and north along the immediate eastern seaboard. I think that's what you're alluding to. I have not looked at the NAM, but maybe that's what the NAM is suggesting.
Yeah, well, there's a few things going on in the upper air that I think are worth paying a little bit of attention to. I mean, usually 95 times out of 100, these sorts of things ultimately wind up going out to the northeast and far enough offshore where they're not a problem. But there's some subtleties in the upper atmosphere that I think are worth noticing. So we're going to take a look at that tonight. Robert Russo hitting Super Chat tonight. Thank you, Robert, for doing that. Joe and I appreciate it greatly. So let's get right to it. We're going to go right to the satellite where we can see our three name systems. We don't want to forget about Grace, which continues to become better organized. The signature on the satellite continues to improve as the center moves away from Jamaica. The conditions in the Caribbean, I think, are wide open for strengthening, and I'm pretty confident this is going to wind up being a hurricane, at least a Cat 1, and maybe even a Cat 2 before it gets to the Yucatan Peninsula. It's beelining to the west. Henri is on the smallish side, but also getting better organized. Really, actually looks pretty good, pretty decent here on the satellite as it continues to drift slowly west-southwestward. And there you have Fred. The remnant low circulation is still pretty obvious there in eastern Tennessee, western North Carolina. And there's an arm of showers and storms, Joe, blowing up right now in parts of North and South Carolina that they've got a tornado watch up. And I'm thinking that some of these cells are revving up here, so we'll show that up on the radar. But tropical moisture coming up the eastern seaboard, and that's going to be at least the story for the rest of the week. It's going to be very humid, very muggy, and I still going with what we said last night. The bulk of the rain with Fred is going to wind up passing west and north of the coastal plain.
Yes, and speaking of humid, looking at the GFSX forecast for the next 7 days, in New York City, or at least the tri-state area, the average for dew point temperature over the next 7 days is 68, give or take a degree or two, is 68 degrees. So if you're looking for any kind of a break, any kind of a change from the very humid conditions that we're going to be thrust upon in the coming hours, and I'm talking about you're close to 70, that's almost, that is oppressive. And that's going to be the case. That's going to be the story, not just for the next few days, but maybe right on through the early part of next week. This may be very well the longest string of days, the longest protracted spell of humid weather that we have had, at least up here in the northeastern United States, or at least in the New York City metropolitan area. So, you know, the old saying, it's not the heat, but the humidity. And boy, I tell you, Joe, that humidity is going to be making it indeed rather uncomfortable, rather muggy for a number of days to come.
Well, I just switched over to the radar, and the satellite was telling you something there with that blow up. You could see the tail coming down on the east side of the low center, which is right into southwestern corner of North Carolina. If you're just judging from the radar echoes, you still can see the rotation here, but there were 3 tornado warnings that just expired, 2 in northwestern South Carolina and 1 in southwestern North Carolina, and that is that kind of that feeder band, I guess, that just is left over and swinging around to the east. And the steady heavy rain, eastern Tennessee, westernmost North Carolina, on up into southwestern Virginia, eastern Kentucky, and into West Virginia. The bulk of this is going to go, again, I think you're going to have to be west of the I-81 corridor for the most part in order to see any kind of serious rainfall. And it also looks like it might even be, at least in Virginia, it may wind up passing even further west than I-81. You probably have to jump over to the West Virginia side in order to get into some of that heavier rain that's moving up. Always when they track up the west side of the Appalachians, the general rule is that east of the mountains, it's more convective and not this sort of widespread area that you see on the radar that's going on in Kentucky and West Virginia and eastern Tennessee. That area passes well to the west. The stuff to the east is going to be more convective, and I think that's what we're going to be dealing with tomorrow and probably again on Thursday.
Right, and for us here in the tri-state area, it looks like late tomorrow night into the first part of Thursday will be the time for us to watch for the remnants of Fred. In fact, our friends over at the Storm Prediction Center have placed our area tomorrow, probably more like tomorrow night into the beginning of Thursday morning, in a marginal risk for severe weather. And inside of that marginal risk, Joe, they have placed a 2% possibility or probability for tornadic activity, which tells me that what they're thinking of with this passage of the remnants of Fred could very well be a spell of not only showery heavy rains, but also some very strong, if not perhaps damaging wind gusts, and also the slight possibility that mixed into all of that might even be an isolated funnel cloud or tornado to deal with, and that would be in the late night hours again tomorrow night into the early hours of Thursday. So this could be something for those of us up here in the immediate New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut area.
Yep. Total agreement there. Radar pretty active here. And there's also, by the way, in western New York, we're seeing some heavy rain and some flooding, a little flash flood warning up in that dark green rectangular elongated box that you see south of Lake Ontario. That is all north of the warm front that is moving northward. And we've been just sort of waiting for this. So the 21Z map has that frontal boundary cutting across New Jersey and then arcing up into a low that's in eastern Lake Ontario. Then it sort of snakes back in western PA and through Ohio and Indiana. And then the low center on the 21Z map, which was at 5 o'clock, was plotted right over, that's probably where my house is, right over that L, right under that L. So Fred must have passed right over me. I didn't notice it because there hasn't been a breath of wind or anything like that. But once the low center went by, the rain just shut off. I just thought it would shut off a little sooner, but thankfully, finally by 6:30 it was done. But dew points all over the place, Joe. In Virginia, North Carolina, you're looking at dew points 74, 72, 73, 74, a couple of upper 60s, but mostly in the low to mid 70s. So that's all tropical air that this thing is sitting in.
Right. Well, it is tropical. The Usually these tropical cyclones, either on the approach or in the aftermath, usually usher in some very tropical conditions. We've seen that over and over again up here. And as I said at the start of the show, the average dew point from now through next Tuesday is going to be somewhere around 68 degrees, give or take a degree or two. So it is just going to remain humid. If you're hoping and waiting for that lovely flow out of Canada of cooler and drier air, forget it. It's not coming this way anytime soon. It's just going to remain icky and sticky and muggy for the next week or so. And now, after this little bout with the remnants of Fred, we're indeed going to have to look carefully at the future track of Henri, because Henri is going to be passing rather close to the northeastern coastline, probably very late in the weekend or at the very start of next week. And it'll be interesting to see how the models handle this, whether or not they decide to push it further to the west, which would bring it closer to the coast and bring it closer to us. That'll be, again, for probably the weekend.
I was thinking back a couple of days ago, I mentioned that on my Weather in 5 videos. I talked about how we might wind up seeing Henri slide up far enough west so that, and I mentioned it last night about kicking up the surf maybe for a couple of days over the weekend and maybe having a little bit of impact with the tides if it were to track and hold together. But yeah, I'm a little bit nervous from what I've been seeing on the upper air. We'll get to that in a second. Just want to show you WPC's forecast. This is through 8 a.m. Friday in terms of the total rainfall. 2 to 4 inches in the darker greens, and this is old stuff now that you see down in Georgia. So this map has not been updated. This was an old one, so I'm going to go. Let me just switch to the regular WPC map, because I think now that they stopped advisories, they're not really updating this one on the Hurricane Center. But you can see on their 7-day forecast the heavy rains and the dark reds and the brighter reds and in central PA and just north and west of the Catskills up into central New York, and then kind of pushing up into northeastern New York. And of course, it's already raining down, the rain that you're seeing down in the southern Appalachians. So what you're seeing here is just the additional rainfall that falls this evening before the low pulls away, another 3/4 of an inch to 1.5 inches as you go from south to north. And then that, most of this is front end loaded. Also, just want to note some rather interesting features up in the northern plains where we're seeing rather substantial rainfall for the next 7 days in the Dakotas, in Minnesota, up in Montana, Wyoming, Utah, western Colorado. Some of these areas are very dry, so certainly the rain will be most welcome. And the convection, the rainfall that you see on the map east of North Carolina, not what's near the coast, but because that's more frontal than anything else, and some of that is convective from Fred going by to the west. But the stuff that's offshore, that is from Henri. So you can't really glean too much from. Sometimes you can sort of figure out what they're thinking by how the precip area is outlined, but I can't really figure out too much out of this, at least at the moment. Now, let's get Grace out of the way, because Grace has just about finished its passage near Jamaica, and it's just going to continue to the west and continue to get better organized. The Hurricane Center at 5 p.m., it was at 18.4, 77.9. Top winds still holding their top winds at 50 miles an hour, but there is a Air Force reconnaissance aircraft that's there right now, and I have the recon so we can take a look at what they're finding. I'm going to refresh this in a moment, but I just want to point out that at least the plane on its first pass on the north shore of Jamaica was finding winds of 55 to 60 knots. Those are the light red wind barbs. There's a darker red wind barb that is 60 to 64 knots. I think those are all light red wind barbs. But let's freshen this up, because I put this picture up well over an hour ago. So here's the updated one. So they kind of made a pass around. They haven't closed the center off yet, but you can see there's all these northwest winds here. So there's a center somewhere, and they're still going around and figuring out where it is. But quite a bit in terms of the wind here, 55 to 60 knots on the wind. So they're carrying 50 miles an hour. You might want to push it up to 55 mph. Maybe they'll do that on the next advisory when the plane is done doing what it's going to do. So this is pretty straightforward, Joe. A ridge that builds from the Atlantic westward across the Gulf of Mexico. There's no way this is going to turn with that ridge there. There's no weakness anywhere. So none. So these westerly tracks make sense. This will not be a threat to the U.S., but it might go to Tampico, might even go far enough south to go into Tuxpan.
I'll tell you what, because of the fact that it has such a rapid forward movement, rapid for most tropical systems, especially down where it is right now. I usually see these things meander at about 5, 10, 15 miles per hour. This thing really is chugging. And the fact that it's going to, cut across, apparently it is going to cut across the Yucatan Peninsula, then emerge back into the central to western sections of the Gulf of Mexico. But if it has enough momentum to it, Joe, it may make it all the way across Mexico and reemerge still in relatively good shape. Well, relatively good. It'll probably be just a tropical depression, but it'll probably reemerge in the Pacific and could very well, I think, strengthen again when it gets into the Pacific. I guess it will continue to have, it doesn't get a name change when it goes into the Pacific. It'll continue to remain as Grace, right? Or will it get?
I think the new rule is that if it's crosses over, they keeps this. They used to change the name, but I think I think a few years ago they changed it, and the new rule is that it keeps the same name if it goes on the other side.
So Grace may actually, has a shot of making it all the way into the Pacific Ocean as an intensifying system. I think it would intensify if it manages to hold together to any degree. I think it could actually start intensifying again if it makes it all the way to the Pacific. That would probably not be, though, excuse me, that would probably not be until sometime over the weekend. But still, that's again, it's moving at a fairly good clip for a tropical cyclone. And again, as you point out, because of that ridge to the north, there ain't no way, Jose, that it's going to be able to come anywhere north, anywhere near the mainland United States. So this is going to be a storm that's going to have a high impact to portions of Mexico, the Yucatan, and also north central Mexico. And again, the question is, if it can hold together to any degree, could it possibly, emerge back out over the Pacific and start intensifying again? A very, very interesting scenario, a very interesting system will be Hurricane Grace.
And Jacob Bailey, thanks for the heads up, because the new advisory is out. And yes, 60 miles an hour now on the advisory. The center is just west of Jamaica, and it's at 18,378.6, 50 miles west of Montego Bay in Jamaica, or about 185 miles east-southeast of Grand Cayman. Top winds are 60, moving west at 280 degrees at 15 miles an hour. It's a little slower than what it was moving in the past couple of days. 1,002 millibars on the pressure, 29.59 inches. We've got hurricane warnings for the Yucatan Peninsula from Cancun to Punta Herrero, including Cozumel. Hurricane watch for the Cayman Islands. Tropical storm warnings for Jamaica, the south coast of Cuba, the Cayman Islands, the Yucatan Peninsula north of Cancun to Cabo Catoche, and the Yucatan Peninsula south of Punta Herrero to Puerto Costa Maya. That wasn't too bad. I have to rely on my Italian, and most times it works, and I can figure out, how to pronounce these things. When you were in
junior high school, and high school, what language did you take? Did you take
Italian? Italian, yeah.
Right.
Believe it or not, yeah. No, and I spoke it at home too. So.
Yeah, but that was easy for you to do that. Now I took Spanish and failed miserably in Spanish, and I'll tell you why. I wanted to take French. I did a lot when I was younger. One of my hobbies was shortwave radio listening, And I enjoyed listening to Radio Canada International, and I enjoyed listening to when they transitioned from English over to French speaking, or as we would say, francophone French, kind of a lilt to the French, and also a little bit slower than what you would hear if you actually went to France. I wanted to take French. My mother told me I had to take Spanish because she said Spanish was a lot easier. And I think what happened was I had a mental block. I just did not absolutely refuse to learn how to speak Spanish. I don't mind saying I did very badly learning the Spanish language. I would have, and you know, my sister was in a French class, but I was not able to go take. You know, it's funny thing with my sister. My sister, I think, wanted to learn French, and and my mother, after seeing the disaster that I evolved into by taking Spanish, she told my sister, "Go ahead, take French." And my sister was passed it with flying colors, like she got like 85s, 95s in all of her tests. And I told my mother, I said, you see, if you had let me take French, that would have been me. But again, you took Italian, so that and if you spoke it in your house, in your family, then that was I would think that was a relatively easy.
Yeah, it was.
Right?
The tougher part was writing it, but it came relatively easy. The chairman hit the super chat tip jar tonight. Thank you, Scott. He's going to be going back to the hospital job that he was doing, making COVID runs again. So stay safe, please. That starts up in September. I didn't think we were hoping maybe at this point we wouldn't have to be dealing with that again, but obviously we are. Okay, so let's.
Bill Rogers on the chat board also telling our chairman to please be careful. And he says he's very concerned with the Delta variant and believes vaccines are completely ineffective against the Delta variant. However, from listening to what Dr. Fauci said, I know a lot of you are fans of Dr. Fauci. And boy, did I hear it from a lot of people on my Facebook
Yeah,
page.
you did. You really did.
I did about what public opinion is about Dr. But I believe in Dr. Fauci. And Dr. Fauci says that while those of us who had the shots, and I did get the shot, my wife got the shot.
I got the shot.
I got Moderna.
I got Pfizer.
Pfizer or whatever.
I had no side effects.
Yes, well, according to Dr. Fauci, he says that while we cannot say with surety or certainty that any of these vaccines are going to be 100% effective against the Delta variant, and there could very well be people who may contract the Delta variant who already have the shot. If you get the shot, the effects of the Delta variant on you will not be anywhere near as bad as if you did not get vaccinated. So the thing is, if you get vaccinated and you do get, COVID, if you do get the Delta variant, according to Dr. Fauci at least, it's not going to be anywhere near as bad as if you were just totally unvaccinated, in which case it would probably hit you like a 40-ton Mack truck, and you could lay flat on your back. So, the opinion from the experts are get the shot. You'll be better for it. That's my editorial.
That's your editorial. It's your never to be humble opinion.
Yes.
Right. Okay. I'll. The only thing I will add to that is that these are conversations that people should have with their healthcare professional about whether they should get the shot or not. You should not be making medical decisions based on Dr. Facebook or Dr. Twitter or anything like that. So, if you're unsure, talk to your personal medical professional and make your personal decision. And that's all I'm going to say with regards to that.
Okay.
Okay. So that's also an editorial, my never to be humble opinion. I'm sure the comment sections will be lighting up like a Christmas tree when this is all said and done. All right, let's get back to Grace because the intensity models have grown more bullish. In fact, more than half the models have this as a Cat 1, and we even have one going to a Cat 2. And you'll notice there's double peaks here. So the first peak is when the storm approaches the Yucatan and moves into the Yucatan Peninsula, assuming that the track continues the way it is. So it's forecasting it to become a hurricane, then weaken to a high-end tropical storm, and then once it's off the Yucatan Peninsula, it strengthens back into a hurricane, because you can see just as many models take it back to Cat 1, and we've got a couple that take it up to a Cat 2. I think there might be an outside chance that this could get a little stronger than what the intensity models is. They seem to be catching up. They've been lagging behind with regards to what Grace has been doing. And then, of course, then the final collapse is when it crosses Mexico. But just as you pointed out, Joe, there's a number of these that, they collapse down and then they bounce back up to tropical storm strength. So that could be around day 4 or day 5 when it's moving off the Mexican coast and into the Pacific Ocean, because you've got a number of models taking it back up to tropical storm strength. So you know what? I think you're right. I think this may wind up re-strengthening when it gets to the other side. All right, let's talk a little bit about Henri, and I'm going to go to the NAM 500 model here, and I'm rolling back to Thursday. So, or even I'll go back a little bit further. So obviously you can see the ridge here in the eastern part of the United States. Oops, that's the wrong one. Where's my thing? Is that it? Yeah, that's it. Okay, so here's the upper high that's along the East Coast. Henri is right here. Bermuda's that little speck above it. And Henri is trapped underneath that upper high. And further south, at the base of that upper high, which runs right across the Gulf of Mexico, so to the south of that, you've got Grace. And so we can see why Grace is moving along to the west. Henri is underneath the upper high off the Carolina coast, so it's been moving southwestward, and it may continue to move west or south of due west for a little while longer as it's underneath that upper high. Now, some changes going on in the Northeast, because we do have some troughing. You'll notice that the ridge kind of starts tilting a bit. It's becoming more east-west in nature, and then the northeastern part of the ridge starts to weaken ever so slightly as we go through Thursday, and the stronger part of the ridge is going to be more to the west. But Henri still remains trapped under it. Now, here's this trough that's in the eastern part of the United States. This is Thursday night, and the models are showing a weak cold front that's going to come on through here Thursday night. And this upper trough, originally, if you remember back not too many days ago, we were talking about an upper low forming along the Great Lakes and creating, pretty much a southwest flow east of New Jersey and off the southern New England coast. So Henri would wind up kind of curving into that flow and going out, and that would be the end of that. Well, now what's been happening, and this, by the way, has precedent because we've seen this happen a few times. Instead of the trough doing that, it's actually dropping back southwestward. The bottom of this trough is dropping back southwestward and forms a cutoff low, a broad cutoff low in West Virginia. So suddenly, Joey, look, you got a south-southwest flow here. This is early Saturday morning. Now, I can't see what the NAM does beyond this, obviously, because it only goes for 84 hours. And you talked about yesterday this system in the northern plains just kind of getting sheared. Now, if that's the case, if it doesn't kick that upper low east, because then if it kicked the upper low east, then Henri would just kind of recurve up and around, and that would be that. But if that system up in the northern plains winds up, being a little more sheared and not as deep, and this upper low winds up hanging around, you may have an issue here where Henri will come a lot closer to the coast than you might like. But you see what I'm saying with this? I mean, this does, to me, says you kind of need to we have to pay attention at this point to what's going on in the upper atmosphere. And I'm going to just go to the GFS 500 for the same time frame, and this way at least we can move out to 96 hours and beyond. See, the GFS doesn't quite cut it off there in West Virginia. It just sort of has this finger that is, pushing down from the lakes. It's got a bit of a different look, but the outcome is somewhat the same because that system in the northern plains is getting sheared, and Henri is just getting picked up a little sooner, and it's being taken out a little further offshore. But it still gets awfully close to Cape Cod here. I think given the developments of the models today, we're going to have to see where this all goes. Now, here's Friday. Here's your upper low on Friday, by the way, right in here. It's back through Ohio. It's more, kind of stretched out east-west than how the GFS has it, but it has the same idea. So I think I think there's enough here that says let's pay a little closer attention in the coming days on how this plays out.
Well, I agree, and I think that besides the fact that the low is trying to close off on the various model runs, it certainly has been doing that more and more with each passing run every 6 hours. Don't discount also the subtropical high that's out over the Atlantic, the Bermuda high, which of course will help Bermuda because it's going to keep that system from approaching them. But if that thing starts to increase and flex its muscles, as I said, and begins to expand more to the west, that also is going to help to keep Henri on a track closer to the coastline. In fact, it'll get caught in that infamous corridor between the upper low over the Ohio Valley and the big subtropical high offshore. There's only one place that Henri can go, and that's somewhere in between. And like I said, depending upon the strength of that subtropical high and the intensification, possible intensification of that upper low on future runs over the Ohio Valley, that thing could very well make its way closer to the coastline. Right now, the only place in the northeastern United States that needs to be very concerned, I think, would be Cape Cod and the islands, and maybe, just maybe, southern Nova Scotia as well, around the Yarmouth area. But again, this all could change in future runs. If you look at the upper level and also the surface features, Joe, going back over the last 24 hours, just over the last 24 hours, you see a dramatic shift in the path or prospective path of Henri relative to the eastern seaboard. I mean, 24 hours ago, this wasn't even on the radar, so to speak.
Right.
This wasn't even a factor. It didn't seem like it was going to be a factor, aside from maybe churning up the waters. Now, suddenly, it is now close enough for it to be something to be considered. And if we have another 24 hours where it continues to, you say the trend is your friend. If the trend continues the way it's been, there's going to be some trouble in River City.
Well, I just brought the icon up. When sometimes the European will mimic the icon because we get to see the in-between run of the icon. Take a look at this. Now, this is really a little bit ridiculous, but there's your upper low. Now, Henri at this level is right here, okay? This is your upper low. And, of course, now here your northern stream system that's up in the northern plains, that is getting sheared out and lifting up. So, that's not coming east. Watch what the icon does, Joe. Look at that cutoff low. As it rotates around, slowly dropping southeastward, and it catches it and lifts it up, and it catches it and lifts it northwestward right into Cape Cod by 120 hours. That's Sunday afternoon. Look at that. That's at 500, by the way. So that's at the upper level. So let's let me bring up the surface map because this is a must.
The upper low is almost looking at Henri and saying, "Come to me, come to me."
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
As it swallows it. Now here's the surface. So this is Saturday morning. I'll use the rain frozen, just in case there's a snowflake somewhere. Okay, here we go. All right, so this is at 90 hours, and now we'll go to 93, Waiting for 96, waiting for 99, because the icon is in 3-hour increments. 0Z. So now it's moving north-northeast at this point because the upper low has yet to capture it, but now it's going to start to capture it. And it turns north and then goes northwest right into Cape Cod from the southeast. Look at that. And that's as far out as the icon goes. You know, we can go the 12Z will give us an extra goes for 120, so it'll give us out to 180 at least. So let's take a look at just want to see the old icon just to see what it did. So for the same time frame, it sort of had the same idea here, Joe. It take it northwest into Cape Cod, just kind of rotates it around, I believe, and then starts to go, does a counterclockwise loop, and then it goes out to the east. You know, very interesting setup here. That seems to be at least on the on some of the models. I did not look at the Canadian. Shall we look at the Canadian? I haven't looked at the Canadian. I haven't looked at the Canadian in months. We'll let that load. While it's loading, let's just show you. This is the 18Z, which on the last 3 runs of the tracking models, they have been there's been a distinct leftward shift. And now we actually had one, you know, the HM&I, whichever model that is, and you can see that's the furthest left that now for the first time actually takes it into southern New England and just grazes Montauk. But now you're actually starting to see some of the other models that are backing a little bit more westward and closer to Cape Cod. The majority of them are still all go out well east of 70, so you know, let's not forget that. But some of them are actually seeing this. Some of the models are actually picking up on perhaps what may be going on. And the other thing is the intensity models, which kind of struck me. A lot of them make this a Category 1. It's almost there. But you got a few of them that take it to Category 2. You got 2 of them that take it up to Category 3. Wow. This is also a big change. I mean, they were talking yesterday. I didn't read the discussion, the 5 o'clock discussion, because there or at least there was going to be some rather strong northeasterly shear. I don't know if that's still an issue because I hadn't had an opportunity to take a look. But I'll have to read their discussion to see what the Hurricane Center's thinking on this. But
the Hurricane Center on the 5 o'clock discussion says that the northwesterly shear currently affecting Henri is subsiding, which should allow the storm to gain a little more strength tonight. And then they say a round of moderate northerly shear is expected to set up over Henri on Wednesday and Thursday, and that will likely temporarily end the opportunity for strengthening. Although beyond that, who knows? So
okay, because they were pretty adamant about the shear that that's going to develop in the next couple of days was going to basically rip it apart. So they obviously have now taken that out of their thinking because they're not saying that anymore. So the Hurricane Center folks, my guess is that they're seeing what we're seeing, or we're seeing what they're seeing, and they're thinking there might be some alternative outcomes to all of this. But at the very least, Joe, it's an interesting scenario. I mean, none of this is guaranteed. Again, most often than not, when we have situations that are like this, these systems do wind up going out and are of no consequence. Now, here's the Canadian, and the European also took it out well to the southeast. The Canadian pretty much loses it here. So you see it never really it's got it relatively weak off the North Carolina coast. So when this is at Friday morning, it's at 32.5. I'm just estimating with my mouse over the low and getting the coordinates there. 32.6 at 72.7. And then it just keeps the isobar, but loses the low. I mean, there's a 10-12 low well southeast of New Jersey and Long Island, and then it just kind of goes to the east. It's a little strange here. It almost treats it more like a frontal low than anything else. So you're not going to get any. I don't know that you're going to get much out of much worthwhile out of the Canadian in terms of figuring out what's going to happen.
It used to be in the old days the Canadian would take a storm like this and make it into a Category 5.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering now, Joe, because we brought this up yesterday, the fact that the models are not spinning these storms up uh, into category threes. I mean, occasionally they do on the odd run, but they're not doing it with the same kind of consistency, and they also seem to be they seem to have underdone a lot of these systems, trying to make them go away. And in the case of Fred, for example, in the case of Elsa, trying to show shear and the systems weakening to open waves and just disappearing, and that has not been the case. Grace is another example where you had the models kind of weakening it and making it disappear. So I don't know. Maybe these upgrades have impacted things in odd ways, and I guess we're still kind of getting used to this. Now, I did notice in the long range on the prior run, you were talking about this long spell of humidity that we're gonna be in the east, and I noticed on the GFS was dropping a major trough into the eastern part of the United States after day 10. And I'm just seeing on this new run. Now, this is the Canadian 500 that I'm looking at. Troughing still in the west. This is only going to go out to 240. Let me just switch over to the GFS so we can take a look at what it wants to do in the long range. But it was bringing a rather important cold front through here late next week, and bringing a very nice, large, high pressure coming out of Canada for the last weekend of August and going into the first days of September. So a cool air mass and a low humidity air mass. But here we are at 192 on the GFS, 210. There's that upper low, drops down near James Bay. Now on this run, it looks like on the old run, it was actually dropping the heights all the way down into the southeastern part of the United States. This has a little bit more of a sheared look. And then another trough comes in right behind it. And this is for Tuesday, August 31st. That's not a half shabby little trough there. But troughing coming back into the eastern part of the United States. So at least that'll bring, at the very least, it should start bringing cold fronts through here with decent dry air masses behind it. Are you still with me, Joe? Or did I lose you? Hold on. Hold on, Joe. Just a second. I lost your audio.
No.
Oh.
Joe,
yeah.
Can you hear me?
I hear you now. I lost your audio there for a second.
The executive producer upstairs came rushing down to question the fact that I was not wearing my headphones.
I told you. What did I tell you?
Yes.
Did you tell her what I told you?
Absolutely and positively right.
I
mean, I'm doing a show. I can't get into a complete explanation as to what is happening. I just thought it would we just let it slide, But nothing gets past the executive producer. That's all I can say.
Oh, it's too bad I had the map up.
She said. She also said that I sound horrible, that I'm overmodulating. I don't know how it sounds for everybody else on the chat board.
Well, you are overmodulating a little bit. I'm trying to.
She says, on the chat board, she's saying, why does my hubby's audio sound awful, like he's broadcasting in a tin can?
Well, because you need to get a good microphone, and so you don't sound like you're broadcasting from a tin can.
Well, then she's going to start questioning, why am I not wearing my headphones?
Well, because you need to find that setting, that Bluetooth microphone setting on your computer.
Well, we couldn't find it this afternoon, Joe.
Okay.
You and I both, we worked on this for an hour and we couldn't find it. So.
All right. So you know what?
Anyway,
we're going to have to get you a microphone. Okay.
We're not going to get me a microphone. Actually, I wanted to get a microphone originally. Oh no, you're going to get the top of the line Bluetooth. And you know what? If you had blue teeth, nobody would look at you. Nobody would want to be around you. I have a Bluetooth, and you can see what's happened, at least in the mind of some people.
All right. Why don't we do Briller Jeopardy at this point?
Why don't we?
Yes.
I don't know.
Why don't we?
Let me get the questions. Maybe I should just stop doing the show altogether, Joe. I get more aggravation from the executive producer behind the scenes, aftermath of many of these shows. Maybe my hair would start turning brown again, instead of turning this silvery white that I have. All right, let me. I know I'm going to be in big trouble tonight, folks, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody hates me now. On Facebook, they hate me for my comments, and now my wife is going to hate me. No one's going to like me. Where is the question, Scott? Oh, there's the question right here. So here we are, another Briller Jeopardy, and this is countries. Name the 8 countries to begin with the letter I. I, Joe.
All right. Let's see. India.
Yes.
Italy.
Yes.
Ivory Coast.
We don't have that there on this list.
The nation of the Ivory Coast.
I'm sorry. I'm
All right, I will file a complaint about
the
that.
decision of the judge was final.
Okay. My brain is stuck on Italy and India. Oh God. I mean, there's the Iberian Peninsula, but that's not a country.
Let me give you
Help
a
me.
hint.
My brain is fried. Help me.
You take some water and you put it in your freezer to make.
Iceland.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that helped. There's 5 more.
Give you another
Ireland. Ireland.
Yeah, I was there. It's all right. I was going to say this clue will make you green with envy.
Ireland.
Yeah.
That's 5.
Right.
Iran, Iraq.
There you go. You got them.
And now there's one more.
There's actually 2 more.
2 more. Okay, because you're not counting the Ivory Coast. India, Italy, Iceland, Ireland, Iran, Iraq.
What country considers Iran and Iraq an enemy?
What country considers Iraq an enemy?
Iraq and Iran as an enemy.
Well, that's not exactly a short list. And it starts with an and that starts with an I.
In the neighborhood.
Well, before we even go to that one, another one's popped up. Indonesia.
Indonesia, there you go.
All right.
One more.
Okay, and it's an enemy of Iran and Iraq, and it starts with an I. Oh, Israel.
There you go.
Yeah, that's
There you are.
yeah. That wasn't too bad. I was able to muddle through.
All right, and here's the bonus question. Name the 2 countries that begin with Z.
With Z, Zambia, Zambia
Right.
is one, and the other one. Oh my God, Zambia and I don't know. I need a little help.
I don't know how to give you help for this one. Even allude to some kind of a clue.
What continent?
You want me to give you just the continents?
Well, what continent? No, the continent.
Or what continent?
Yeah, what continent is it on, the other Z country? Is it on Asia? Is it in Africa? Is it in Europe? It's not in Europe.
I believe it's Africa.
Okay. So Zambia is one. Oh God, you know what? I'm not going to know this. Go ahead. What is it?
I'm just gonna wait a minute. I'm gonna just check.
Zimbabwe.
Yes, there it is. It's midway between Mozambique and Botswana.
Yes. Okay.
And there you will find Zimbabwe.
Okay.
And I'll make you a free egg cream if you could tell me what the capital of Zimbabwe is.
Oh, I
Okay.
have no idea.
Harare.
Okay, a hottie.
And the president of Zimbabwe is Emerson Mnangagwa.
Right.
So there you are. All the things you never knew about Zimbabwe here on the Joe and Joe Show tonight.
What was the other Z country?
Zambia.
Zambia. Okay.
Didn't Bob Hope and Bing Crosby have a movie, Road to Zambia?
No, road to was it the road to Algiers? I thought it was.
I don't know. That would have been a nice place to go, Zambia, right?
I suppose. I don't
The
know.
road to Morocco. Did they go to Morocco?
Morocco, Milwaukee.
On the road to Morocco.
Where is it? It's just south of Spain.
South of Spain, yeah.
All right, let's say good night and bring this back tomorrow on the Joe and Joe Show at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, and we'll see what adventures the models will be taking us with regards to Henri.
Bill Rogers, by the way, on the chat board says, "Have I made any plans to lead the chat board on a trip to see the solar eclipse?" I'm assuming you mean 2024. There is a possibility that I may be going to the one this year, the total eclipse this year in December, and I'll just leave it there. And if you want to know where that is, look it up on Wikipedia, and you'll probably say, "What the heck?"
It's south, way south, way
It's
south,
way south.
way south.
So we'll see about that. And somebody else, Joe, was it Bill Rogers again, asking about when we're going to go to when we're going to go to the diner when you come up here, Joe. I didn't know we were thinking about a diner.
Well, I'll talk to.
Official.
Well, I'll talk to you about it off air.
Yeah. And
Okay.
if my wife, and by the way, if my wife is still watching, if she's still talking to me, she can come back downstairs again, and she can hear the discussion between the two of us as to why I'm not wearing my headphones tonight.
Okay. All right. Let's say good night. Thanks everybody for being here. Thanks to those of you, Robert Russo and Chairman, hitting super chat tonight. Most appreciated as always. And also, don't forget to look for. I put up a Weather in 5 video on YouTube almost every day, not every day, but most every day. And I'm certainly going to be doing it this week every day while we have all this weather going on. So you can check out. Usually I put it up in the middle of the morning, so you can get a morning update. So just go to the YouTube channel, because I don't do that live. I pre-tape it, and it's usually the videos are less than 10 minutes. Although today, theoretically, they're supposed to be 5 minutes because it's called Weather in 5. But I rarely go 5 minutes. I usually go between 7 and 10. And this morning I went 17 because there was just so much going on. So check those out in the morning, and we'll see you tomorrow night at 7:30 Eastern Time. Good night, everybody.
Good night.